Hello everyone and welcome back to Warcry 2.0. This time we're taking a look at the Kharadron Overlords. As per usual we'll be going over the models first, look at their points costs and their abilities, and last but not least check out a list. Well, for Kharadron we just got a couple of new leader models, no new unit options, which isn't too bad because we had a ton of those already. So, what are our new leaders? We get the Archanaut Admiral. He costs 190 points, not too expensive for a leader. Movement 3, toughness 4, 25 wounds. Obviously the movement 3 is a bit bad though. Otherwise good stats. Range of 8, 3 attack, strength 4, 1, 4 damage for an average of 3 damage in range, which is not that great. However, he does deal 5.4 damage in melee as well. I'm planning on doing this now. Please do let me know what you think about it. Just adding for ranged models their melee damage like behind here as an afterthought. I think it's gonna help just show you how good a model is gonna perform overall. Then we got the Engine Master with dirigible suit. Oh, sorry, maybe I should just say I could obviously put the melee one in here as well and then put the ranged damage behind, but for a movement 3 model I think his ranged attack is going to be the most important one, because that's what he's going to use for most of the battle normally, and that's why I'm putting it this way and just giving the melee as an afterthought basically. Then we got the Endron Master with dirigible suit. That's a flying Endron Master. He costs 300 points, but well, as I said, he's flying as well. Movement 10, toughness 4, 28 wounds. So he has some serious movement, some good wounds, toughness, all good. A range of 10, 2 attacks, strength 5, 3, 6 damage for 5 damage on average, which at range, for a 10 inch range really is not bad. And he's dealing 5.4 damage in melee as well. However, he's very expensive, so 5 damage, it's a tough call. Then we got the Endron Master with Endron Harness. He's like a slower close quarter variant of the Endron Master with dirigible suit. Costs 205 points. Also movement 3, toughness 5 though, 25 wounds. And he's only melee for range 1, 4 attack, strength 5 to 4 damage for an average of 6.7 damage. Not bad, but yeah, I could imagine greater stuff. I don't know. He doesn't feel that great, because if you're a purely melee character, movement 3 is gonna suck. It's gonna suck real bad. Then we got the Ether Navigator. He costs 175 points. Relatively cheap for a leader actually. He's a movement 3, toughness 4, 22 wounds. Range of 8, 3 attacks, strength 4, 1, 4 damage. So 3 damage on average at ranged, which isn't that much. 4 damage in melee. So overall he's just like a slightly cheaper version of the Archanaut Admiral really. However, they do get different abilities. Then we got the Ether Chemist. He's 125 points. Super cheap for a leader, like ridiculously cheap. Movement 3, toughness 4, 22 wounds. Again, yeah, same profile as the others. Pretty good for 125 points for sure. He has a range of 1, so only melee. 3 attacks, strength 3, 1, 4 damage. So his damage output is gonna be pretty low at 2.6. But that's unsurprising as he's this dirt cheap. Now let's have a look at their points values. As you can see here, they are all not that great for damage output. Really, the only exception is the Endron Master with Endron Harness, but he's close quarter as well, so he needs to do better. The ranged ones, for range you can almost always expect the lower tier of 0.02 damage per point value, so it's what you expect. It's not great though. Also for survivability, obviously none of these are super great, even though the Ether Chemist, he's actually good for his points value in terms of survivability. His damage output again is not great. So far none of these leader options seem like they are gonna uh, blow Kharadron into a much higher tier, but let's have a look at the abilities everyone gets. So first off, we get one new abilities for all the flying guys. I think it's a new one anyways, which is adding 1 to damage for hits and crits against flying enemies. It's called Master of the Sky, so quite cool. Not gonna be super interesting in a lot of matchups, gonna be very good against Nighthaunt, but can be good against things like a Crypt, Flayer, and so on, some of the beefy flying powerhouses that other factions have. Now for leader abilities, we get the double for the Endrin Harness, Endrin Master, which is just adding 1 to his attacks and strength characteristic, which is obviously good. However, he's already strength 5, so adding that doesn't do much, so it's really not much beyond Onslaught. So yeah, not bad, but it's also not that great. Then we got a double for the Gunnery Sergeant, so that's your... We used to have that as well, that's not a new ability, so that's for the Thunderer Leader, and he deals... he can just pin one enemy within 20 inches of him, cannot disengage. This ability honestly doesn't come in useful very often. It's the same that you get on Corvus Cabal, and it doesn't seem to perform that well for me normally. Then we got a triple that all the fighters can use, all the leaders, and it's called Fight for Profit, which is basically you add 1 to the attacks characteristic of all friendly models within 6 inches of you. Interestingly, just something to note here, it's not visible friendly model, so this does work for the leader himself as well. And it does add 2 attacks instead if the person using it is within 3 inches of an objective, which I think is very cool. It makes it one of the best leader triples in the game. It's already good as it is, but if you're close to an objective, it's ridiculously good. And this works for ranged attacks as well. Then we got the Aether Chemist, so our cheap leader option. He gets a triple which does -1 attack for all enemies within 6 inches, which can also be quite powerful. So just really reducing that damage output any enemy can do. Kind of good for defending your ranged focused warband against an onslaught of melee guys mainly. And then we got a quad for our Etheric Navigator. He can basically pick one visible enemy anywhere on the battlefield, roll a number of dice equal to the value of the ability, and each 2+ deals 3 damage. That is a ton of damage you can potentially throw out. So say you got a quad 4, you can expect like something like 9 to 12 damage, which for a range across the entire board is quite good. However, again, it's a quad, so not super reliable, and you've got a warband that is all about range. So do you really need another ability to pick something up from range? Maybe not. So that's just something to keep in mind there. So how would I build this warband myself? Well, let's have a look at our lists here. To me, I still love the Arcanaut with volley gun. I would bring 3 of those. Top of that, I think 2 normal Arcanauts are good just to bring up your numbers. 65 points is cheap, and they do have a ranged attack that's not great, but it's not horrible. And yeah, they can just hold objectives, they can waste activations, I'm sorry. And yeah, they are just not a bad model. Then I would bring 1 Thunderer with Mortar, just because, like in the past, I brought the Ether Cannon, but looking at these guys, they are so close in damage output that I really think it's worth it saving these 30 points on the Ether Cannon going for the Mortar. Top of that, I think the Mizzen Master is great. Having 1 very fast moving, high damage flying model is just awesome. He's so good for hunting stuff. He's gonna be so good for picking up treasures. He's just gonna give you a lot of utility. So the Mizzen Master, in my opinion, really good model. And then I'd get an Ether Chemist, because I think Ether Chemist is pretty sexy. He's very cheap. He doesn't do much in terms of giving you damage. He's basically a buffing unit for your other warband. But he can give you that fight for profit aura, and he can give you that -1 to attacks from enemies aura. So I would probably put him in the battle group with as many as of the Arcanaut Volligans as I can. So we have 8 fighters, so we can put 4 fighters in one battle group. So I'd probably make my shield Ether Chemist plus 4 Arcanauts with Volligan. Or even the Mortar and 2 Volligans, whichever you prefer. And then I would put the Mizzen Master into the dagger probably, and the Arcanauts in my shield. In my hammer, I'm sorry. And, well, together with the Mizzen Master I would put either one of the Volligans or the Mortar, whichever I decide to not put in the shield. Because then I can buff 3 of my heavy ranged units with the Ether Chemist 5 Fight for Profit. Obviously, the Mizzen Master can use the same ability, however, with him moving 10 inches and being melee focused, he's less likely to be actually around all the fighters I want to buff. The Ether Chemist is just as slow as everyone else. He can just stay with them, give them that big old bubble, and make everyone hit harder. So I think this is what I would go for, and I feel like it's gonna be a pretty competitive, pretty powerful list. Anyways, guys, thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next one.